Welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. My name's Scott Snow, and I'm the founder and visionary of All the Hats We Wear. And this is really a journaling community where journaling is the focus and really self-development is the purpose. I'd like to start by talking about game-changing journaling. As I've said many times in this podcast, ideas are really the lifeblood of this sort of company. So when you have an idea that you could call a game changer, that means that a lot of things are being influenced by it. It's you've got the one idea and it trickles a bunch of different ideas and a lot of things fit into place because of that one idea. So this week for me, my game-changing idea was to use Otter, which is an AI. Basically, it just converts audio into text. Well, that's how I use it. So I signed up with that, and I really like that program. Very easy to use. So what I wanted to do was take all of my past audio journal MP3 files, audio files, bring them into Otter, which automatically puts them into automatically transcribes into text. And then basically I take that text, cut and paste, and put it in a Google Doc. So I want to have one Google Doc that has all of my journals for my whole life since I was 10 years old. And I'll just put them in where they belong chronologically. Now, one reason that this is a game changer is that now I have re-welcomed doing some journaling by hand. Maybe something more personal, or, it just could be something that you really want to get into the feel of it. The main idea for my audio journal was that I could never keep up. And for me, it was really important to be able to do it every day. So with the audio journal, I was able to last for about 7 years so far that I've gone every day and having a journal entry, even though it's audio. But now I can take old, scraps of paper and half-written notebooks, bring them all into text and have it all be together, and my audio. So of course, maybe the end result is that I delete my audio files, but the net result is still captured. My enthusiasm, my spirit, everything that went into doing the audio journal is captured in text. Now, naturally, you can't, if I were to delete them all, you wouldn't be able to hear the inflection of my voice or the tone or the rhythm or the silence and all that thing that is very musical about a dictation. So I'm still kind of debating that. But basically, having them all end up as a Word document in text would be great. Now I'm going to need to hang on to these audios so that I can fix all of the typos. Because a lot of times you have irregular words or maybe someone's name or a place, anything that's kind of unique, usually the AI will kind of screw up on. So maybe if I have some written journal that is very personal, then I can shred it after the physical copy, and I've got it on the digital, which is, I think, easier to safeguard than a physical copy. What I really didn't want, which, I would probably love to have it, but to have a bookshelf full of 40 years worth of journals right on the bookshelf. That's not great for keeping your own private thoughts because anyone could just come in and pick a year off the shelf. So if I write it by hand, then maybe I could shred it afterwards, the physical copy, or maybe just dump it in the public trash somewhere. I kind of like doing that, actually. It's kind of exciting to me. It's not like I'm writing anything terrible or like, anything bad. It's just personal thoughts. So maybe I'll just put it in some random trash can at a gas station. And I kind of feel like I'm like with the FBI or something. Like I don't know, I'm leaving traces everywhere. Have you had any game-changing ideas? I'd like to hear about them for sure. You can comment right here in Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're listening. So this game-changing idea led me to a couple important questions. One of them was, which subjects are better covered in which medium of journal, meaning dictation audio, written by hand, or typed? To be honest, I found that there is no advantage to typed for me. I don't like being tethered to the computer. I feel like I should be spending my time elsewhere than sitting at that laptop anytime that I don't have to be. But for certainly, I did ask AI for some advice on this, and basically they just said that the more personal reflection, deeply inward kind of looking content would be better written because you're slowing things down, you're more steeped in the emotion, I think. And for audio, it's better for the kind of the brainstorming, the freewheeling, creative kind of approach. You don't know where it's going to go. And there's a value to that too. So whatever is the subject, use that medium of journaling. Through TikTok, I've learned how, the visual journaling. I would never think to do that. It's not how I think. I don't think I'm a very visual person. I'm a very sound-oriented musician in person. But to see these, they call them the junk journals, where it's just like a collage. It's a work of art. And I definitely think there's advantages to that as well. That seems to be really in line with kind of an expressive art approach where you're just dropping the needle and being expressive right away. And whatever has happened to you, whatever is going on with you, is going to probably come out in that artwork. I don't think people are doing a collage and thinking, this shape over here is my argument that I had with my mother-in-law last week. But it's coming up through the art. So it's pretty interesting, the whole visual journal part. Also, I think this whole game-changing idea helped me think that maybe I need to remove the audio journal word out of the title of the book and the course. Maybe it's just about journaling and just embrace journaling whatever way that is best for the customer. Because I haven't seen really any writing or posts about audio journal. Very, very rare. So I thought that was the big innovation. But perhaps I think it's more of the system of going through all the different hats that you wear and all of the different goals that you have for these roles and what are your vision statements for all of your goals. All of that is I think, the meat of this course. All the hats we wear. And more importantly, what are the hats that you should be wearing that you're not? Those are what I call the placeholder roles. And those are key as well. You got to be thinking about the future. I saw a lot of ads on social about this book, Power by Robert Greene. For some reason, he's got this big promotion of 5 books that he wrote. I don't really know his work, but one of them was Power. And the motto that they said, that the unique selling proposition was that it's banned in prisons, that it's so powerful that you can't have it in a prison because I guess you would become more powerful in prison. I don't know. And that kind of stuck with me. That was a good tagline, I thought. Pretty powerful. Banned in all prisons. I've often thought that my book would be really helpful in prison or a correctional setting where, let's say, people have a lot of time to reflect and possibly, hopefully, work on themselves and have a focused self-development purpose. And I think that would be great to think about the roles and go through this whole journaling system. In the past, as a music therapist, I've tried to volunteer at correctional facilities, and I got a lot of resistance. It was really not easy unless you knew someone to speed up the process. So it's kind of safeguarded. And to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of interest in the rehab part, which is unfortunate. I think every correctional institution should have my book. How about that? I want to talk about energy. When I went to school for music therapy, a big focus was really going by the real research, which showed, the benefits of music therapy in a controlled setting and, real research, things that could be replicated on different places around the world and having a set kind of a laboratory setting of restrictions that you can replicate that same study. So, there was a lot of kind of woo-woo type of, hippie music therapy, quote unquote. Or might be someone that is, I don't know, reciting some words and they have like a paddle drum and they're hitting the paddle drum over your body and you're laying on like a massage table and it's just weird. The vibrations and like all of these claims that weren't really substantiated by anything was making the real music therapist, board certified music therapist who went to school for it, be piled in with all of these other hucksters. But when I went to school for life coaching, the director of the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, which is the program I did, Bruce Schneider, he wrote this book called Energy Leadership. And I thought it was kind of interesting then. And then I kind of maybe thought, well, maybe it's too, you know, out there. But now I've started to go back to it and think that there's some value. The basic idea is that you go through these 7 levels of energy. And I do believe sometimes in that energy part, like an example of something I journaled about recently was I had an interaction with someone and I was telling them about something I had in my audio journal from years ago. And the person was like immediately like negative about it. They were like, well, what's going to happen when you die, with all these. So sort of like a shitty little response. And usually, and that's another benefit of journaling is for me, I try to be optimistic. I pretty positive. And a lot of times I don't realize when someone was being shitty until I journal about it. So it's a great help for me and go, you know what? That person wasn't being very cool about that. They were kind of knocking me down a couple pegs. And I was being nice in the moment, but now I'm realizing that what happened. So that's an energy change. You're bringing about this positive energy. They don't like that maybe you're moving up or that you're, I don't know, they think that you're taking a few steps forward and that they feel it's their job to knock you down to maybe to match their energy level, which might be a couple energy levels more negative. In music therapy, one of the key elements is to be able to match someone's presentation, someone's energy. You don't want to just start playing a fast, happy song if someone is kind of withdrawn, and you want to try to meet them and have the artwork, have the musical interaction, the therapeutic relationship begin to change that energy into something more empowering. So, and I think I might reread this book, Energy Leadership by Bruce Schneider. He talks about 7 levels of energy, and I'll just give you a quick summary. So, 1 is the lowest energy, that's the most undesirable one, and 7 is the pinnacle. So, level 1 energy is you're the victim. You're helpless. You keep saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, and life is happening to me. Number 2 is conflict energy, which is a win or lose, and it's kind of a defensiveness. And the main feeling is I'll prove you wrong. Level 3, responsibility energy. This means that you have some control. Of what you're doing. It's kind of determined. You have this I'll fix it attitude. For the 4th level energy, compassion. This is win-win, and we can handle this. So it's starting to brighten up. 5 is opportunity level energy. And this is where you're vision driven and everything is an opportunity. So that sounds really good. You still have 2 more levels above that. 6 is intuition and synergy. And this is like the flow state, big picture thinking. And finally, level 7 energy is purpose and passion. And this is where you're fully aligned, you're peaceful, you have absolute trust and calm and fearlessness. So pretty interesting. And they also say that if you're trying to raise up your energy, you don't want to go from the bottom to the top right away. You want to maybe you try to raise it a couple increments. So some interesting things. I think I will reorder the book. It was redone. So having an attitude in creativity, I think, is really important. I think of attitude when I see the movie Rocky, the original Rocky, and it was the way that Rocky hit that slab of meat, in the meat packing factory. He had that snarl and that like meanness, and that's what Meredith Burgess picked up on, Mickey, his coach. And I think the same is with rock and roll. Like you need that Alice Cooper growl or Ozzy's rebellious smile. And I think that's kind of missing in today's new metal. There isn't that danger part. Rob Halford of Judas Priest, like I'm a metalhead for sure. I love Metallica, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, and that's my music. Scott Ian is the guitarist of Anthrax, and I like how he described Rob Halford, the lead vocalist of Judas Priest, and their band and their sound. that it was basically had a barrel full of evil in it. So that's that energy. And I think the same thing with creative energy and getting in a creative zone. Like you need that little bit of a snarl, a little bit of danger. One skill that I think I really need now, and this is pretty important, is that I'm good about getting deep on, like, let's say, reading a bunch of the newspaper. I'm really inspired to read the newspaper. It's one of my most creative times. So every day I read the Wall Street Journal. Well, no, I read the Wall Street Journal weekend, but every day I read the Globe and the New York Times, the Boston Globe and the New York Times. And I'm reading it through the filter of my purpose, of all the hats we wear, like trying to think about the hats we wear and the roles that we play and that dynamic in the news. So really the whole book, I'm thinking of it in that filter. So I don't look at the news as being negative. Of course it is, but I look at it as, where can I help? What would be the solution in my book or my community? So the skill I've identified that I think I really need to work on is to be able to get deep quicker and then just move along to different projects that I'm working on. Not just sit and marinate on one thing of the feeling of being creative and reading the newspaper and getting into it for 2 hours or 3 hours. When you have two Sunday papers, that could be half the day. But to be able to consciously go deep quickly and then come back up again, move to the next subject and go deep again. And so kind of like skip along and get to a lot of things so that you get a lot done. So it's kind of a focus on being a little lighter and more nimble with my creative mindset, my creative process. Speeding it up. When you get too slow, you get sluggish. And I had to embrace the belief that, if a great idea is not going to come up in the first couple minutes, it's not going to come up after a half hour either. So skip along, keep it moving. This leads me to my little discussion on trinkets. I have my little Maury Povich cards here, and trinkets is the next one. I love this size card, the 5x7. So I like to have creative trinkets that help me stay on track. They inspire me, and they're so small and little and cheap. They really are valuable. One of them, as I've shown before, is my Yoda board, and with this week's little reminder, skipping along. And that's what I just mentioned with my focus of trying to keep it along, get deep, but move it along. Another little trinket that I found that is helping me is just this wrench. And I use that with my 5 subject notebook. I just get a cheap, $4 notebook. And when I'm reading the newspaper, I write down new vocabulary, interesting phrases, interesting words. And actually, today is going to be the first time I'm going to read some of these, what I call color words, at the end of my usual podcast episode. So after the call to action or the little challenge, the assignment at the very end of today's episode, I'm going to have an additional bonus little segment, probably, I don't know, 12, 15 minutes of me just reading these color words. So if you're interested in getting some new words in your vocabulary or, just to start using more uncommon words, a lot of times we get stuck into the same stack of words to describe everything, and it's really limiting. What's better to describe your meal as being good or scrumptious? It adds that whole different level of sensory interest. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in color words. But anyway, I use that wrench as my trinket, and when I have the back page, a lot of times it folds up, so I use that wrench on this side so that it weights it down so I can write with one hand and be quick about it. Now, the trinket that I've talked about, I think on TikTok, was my little crab. This is a little, it's like a 2-inch tiny crab with his claws up, and it's actually a pen holder. You just put your pen. I bought it on the TikTok shop. My first thing I ever bought on TikTok. Anyways, I don't use it for my pen because it doesn't work for me to hold my pen. So I use it as a reminder to stick up for myself. I have this at work and then also my home office. It's sort of like confrontational. It's like I like crabs and they're like they're small compared to you and they still want to like fight you. So I like crabs. They're pretty badass. Another trinket I have going along with the Yoda thing, I just found this at the dollar store, a little Yoda Pez. And I decided I'm going to start using this for quotes, inspirational quotes. So that'll be my little Yoda lesson of the day. I'll have a little Pez and I'll read my quote of the day that I think is cool. I also have some cool artwork from my kids. One is from one son that says, I love you to pieces when he was little, and it has little puzzle pieces all around the frame, from like a puzzle. And then the other son gave me a happy Father's Day. I'm nuts, a bolt, you, Dad. And it has a little frame made of tongue depressors, and it has glued on some bolts and screws and stuff. And he has a construction hat on. So those inspire me as well. I came across this term dandy, and I kind of like it. I'm a big Marilyn Manson fan. I loved his Antichrist Superstar album. I think that was just unbelievably rockin' and hard rock and original. And to be honest, I often hear Alice Cooper's voice in Marilyn Manson. He's one of those artists that I hear a lot of art. Like I hear bluesy kind of artists in his voice. I just hear a lot. The industrial, hard rock. And, like there's a classical composer that is similar, Paul Hindemith, who I listen to. And my biggest impression with hearing his music is that you kind of hear like four or five different artists through his music that he was probably inspired by. And, but that's his original style, is like he has now filtered all of these, it's like a stained glass window, and now you get the net result of that. So, real interesting guy. I like his music a lot. I wish that he would have a resurgence. Like, I think he needs a new manager or management or a composer to, like, I don't know, get him back on track to carry on after that great album. The article was about him being a dandy and that he considers himself a dandy. So, what is a dandy? This says that this is a Southern term, dandy. And when you're a dandy, you look at your whole self and everything that you do, from the way that you write letters to the way you dress, the way you shave, has to be something artistic. So it's pretty interesting that everything you do, everything you wear, every move you make, every decision you make is in line with this artistic expression. And talk about alignment. That's pretty deep level of alignment when everything you do is interconnected with that and supporting an expression and outgrowth of that belief. Pretty inspiring for an artist. The sound is the attraction. I was watching a Bill Maher interview with Billy Joel, and I like Bill Maher, love Billy Joel. And they were talking about Maher's question was, why did the Beatles have some crazy, incoherent lyrics? Like, why did they do that? That was his question to Billy Joel. And I love Billy Joel's response. He was saying maybe that is the interest, is how those words sound and how they're said is the interest. Like I'm listening to this song called Big Dogs. It's an Indian guy, Indian rapper. And the big stepper, trendsetter, and kind of silly lyrics, really, when you break it down. Like, what does it mean? But that is the interest of how the words are said, and that's how it sounds, and that's what's cool about it. The song starts with an awesome beat and this synthesized sound. You'll have to listen to the recording, Big Dogs, it's called. But then he's just going, yeah, oh, yeah, oh. That means nothing, but it sounds awesome, and it gets to you because the sound is the attraction. So I thought that was a pretty clever statement by Billy Joel. I had another example of that when I was taking a course called Guided Imagery and Music, Level 1. And the professor asked us to bring in a recording that we would all listen to as a class. And it was something that makes you feel powerful or really empowered, really strong. So I brought in Metallica's Enter Sandman. So when I played it for the group, loud, nice and loud on the boombox, it wasn't the lyrics, it wasn't what he was saying. It was the feeling of the distortion, the sound, and the heavy sounds, and the force behind the singing. It was ugly singing. It was ugly sounds, but that was what was affecting me. So that was the sound. That is the attraction. Kind of an interesting little take. It might shape how you listen to music. I was watching Don Lemon on Facebook the other day, and he's left CNN. He had this whole thing where he said something really stupid about women being past their prime, and it really turned off a lot of people, rightly so. And even when given the chance to like correct himself, he doubled down and like it was just a weird, like, why would you say that? But anyway, besides that, I always liked his style. I like his speaking style. He's very natural on the camera. And now he has his own Facebook channel and his own media company, it seems. And it impressed me that he has 1.8 million followers on his Facebook page. And he can go live at any time he wants. If something breaks, a news story breaks, he can say, we'll do a live in 10 minutes. And I think there's a lot of advantages, that he has now being on his own. I'm sure he doesn't make the same money, but he's able to really connect with his audience on a deeper level. I always like when someone lets their hair down and like you really get to see the person. Except for Anderson Cooper. Like I like CNN, but I don't know why he does that New Year's Eve thing with Andy Cohen, and they really present a different side of their personality, which is fine. At least Don Lemon, I think, has maintained who he is with going rogue, going individual. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But it is pretty dangerous when someone can be that good on camera and go on their own with today's social media platforms. Like you could really make a living out of it. Like he's got almost 2 million people following him. So at any given time, he could have, 2,000 people that want to watch, stay tuned to what he's offering, what he wants to talk about. This next segment is called When a Huge Man Was Sitting on My Chest, which that's a great blog post opening. I was taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I have thought about going back to it. I did enjoy some of it. It was really freaking hard. Like I remember the first day I could barely even sit up. My stomach was just so um, sore from all the, exercise. And I went from like 0 to 100 like immediately, and I paid the price. So maybe next time I would be a little smarter. I do love the Gracie's way of teaching Jiu-Jitsu. I really felt that I needed a curriculum to follow. Anyway, so there was this guy who we were practicing this move. He was, they call it in full mount. So he was basically on top of me, and he was a big guy. And then I was supposed to do these four movements to basically shift him off me and, kind of shrimp under I don't know, it was complicated. Like I'm not a very in my body person. I'm definitely not. I'm not an athlete at all. Um, so I had to do these four steps and it wasn't working. He wasn't budging and I was getting really frustrated and I was claustrophobic. I couldn't breathe very well and I was kind of starting to panic. And I don't know if this guy had an axe to grind. He was being, a real hard ass. He wasn't budging at all. And I think he prolonged it to see like what I would do. And I was expecting him to go just, okay, forget it. It didn't work or like help me or something. So I kept coming back to the panicked feeling and just then I said the only way out is to do these moves. So I kept having to focus back on doing it. Then it wasn't working. And then I was getting more panicked and I was like, I've got to do these four moves. So I had to focus on doing them. And finally, after like 4 or 5 attempts, I got out of the position. But it was sort of a good lesson in that sometimes you have to keep persevering through that difficult time and get to the other side. And you're not getting that help. So it was sort of a step up in intensity for me. It's similar to when I complained that I was having some kind of heart palpitations or skips in the rhythm that were strange. So I told my doctor. And of course, they had me meet with a cardiologist for a stress test. Now, I'd never had that. Basically, they put you on a treadmill and put up the incline to like 45 degrees and then put it up to like run walking, which was a real workout. And you just basically do that for like a half hour. And the cardiologist just sits there and chit chats with the nurse and in hopes that you don't have a full-on heart attack. He would be there to help. So that's the focus. And it was empowering for me in that I don't like to push myself physically, and that I really had to. And there was no escape. I couldn't just say, I couldn't tap out. I couldn't say stop. The doctor was in charge, you know. But what I learned is like how much my body can take. You know, I had no trouble. I had no heart problems when I did that stress test and got my heart going. So it was good in that, you know, I can exercise a lot harder. I always feel like as soon as I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that feels. I don't like stretching. I don't like physical activity really. I wish I could just be a brain in a glass jar, I suppose. When I was preparing for my week of music therapy at the hospital, I started to think maybe my goal will be for us to write a bad song or a bad rap. Because I've been wanting to get into more songwriting and rap, but it feels like I don't have the skills to really make it sound good. So then I said, maybe we just make the focus be bad. And by doing that, maybe probably have a good one. So it removes that tension because your focus is to be bad and it might turn out to be good. So it was a relief valve for that indecision and that lack of confidence. You know, there's been other great examples, you know, the stupid people tricks, like uh like the stupid pet tricks on David Letterman. And Frank Zappa had a bad dance contest, I remember, or an injured person dance contest. When I was in drum corps, the my roommate actually from college is now the director of the percussion, the drum section, the drum line, and they're a world champion drum corps now. They won drums, they won brass, they won color guard, and they won the national championship last year. This is the group I used to play in. Now, when I was with them, we only came in 14th place of the 5 years that I played with them. But now they've really evolved and now they're the best. So, anyway, my roommate and my co member, Colin, was he has a great way of motivating his drumline and his kids. And from what I can see when I watch them warm up, really the only way to make a mistake for his guys is for them not to be giving out 110%. So the focus becomes the energy that you need to put in. And if you're not doing that, then you're making a mistake. Instead of, you know, being worried that you're going to make a mistake and having you kind of continually lower your energy level from 100% because you're worried. And that's where you do make mistakes. So it's kind of an interesting flip on the mindset of peak performance. That's what I surmise when I watch them play because they're just incredible. So, as one of my roles as a music therapist, a sub role of that is to become a rapper, to be able to rap. So, I wrote a rap a couple months ago. I want to share it with you, to be in that, and it's in the spirit of creating something that's bad that I think came out pretty good. I'm not going to use any beats or track to go along with because I don't want there to be copyright problems with, you know, the YouTube upload or whatever else. So I'll just a cappella rap it. I have a new goal. That's to learn to rap. I'm awkward, nerdy, and a little bit fat. I got things to say. That's what I'm thinking. I shower every morning. Keeps me from stinking. I like kicking back with a movie to watch. Jaws is my favorite. It's really top notch. Surviving Freddy Krueger, well, you would be lucky. Jason Voorhees and a doll named Chucky. Michael Myers rules Halloween. I got Elvira's autograph. She's the queen. I met Boss Hogg at a car show in Worcester. Sigourney Weaver's hot, so you better not diss her. Snoop Dogg's from South Central LA. Became a big star, showed others the way. South Central Massachusetts is where I'm from. I'm pretty tough too. I ain't no bum. I had a beagle. Her name was Sprinkles. I woke up real early so she could go tinkle. Before the dog, I had a cat named Gizmo. Attacked my feet. An act of machismo. I love to learn new vocabulary. I'm not hoity-toity. You don't have to worry. I'm parsimonious. I save my money. I don't vituperate or critique anybody. Some days are calm and some are hurly-burly. I love the Three Stooges, especially Curly. My job's music therapy and I'm a winner. I sit in traffic, make pork chops for dinner. Yo, yo, yo. I was revisiting an old journal of a place I worked long ago, and it brought me to this idea of follow the yellow brick road of purpose. And I found that once my company started focused on the right thing, the right purpose, like serving the customer as being the primary focus, that it changes your pathway. Now you're on this path, a different path completely, because that's a different vision or a different goal. And when you're on that new path, you discover that there's new little details all on along that path. So thinking of like the yellow brick road of the three walking along, or the four from Wizard of Oz. Now you're starting to see little flowers and little things along the way that you wouldn't see on the usual path. The other pathway was a focus of um, profit over anything as the purpose. Or maybe it was serving the other employees' needs, or the administration's needs, or the executive team's needs over the purpose of serving customers. Maybe covering your own ass is the purpose in the path. And that's not going to lead you where you want to be. Maybe it's an easy path instead of the righteous one that is more difficult. So which path are you on? Well, thank you for spending some time with me. This was fun. I hope that you send me a little text or an email, scottsno1234@gmail.com, or any of my social media platforms. I'm on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, X, and Facebook. Just look up All the Hats We Wear, or go to my website, allthehatswewear.com, and you'll have a couple links there at the bottom of the page. And tell me about what kind of journaling you do. Is it visual, audio, by text, or by hand? I'm interested to know. And I'm interested to know a couple subjects that you've been journaling about. Tell me 3 of the most current subjects that you've been focused on in your journal, because I'm interested. Till next time, I'll be skipping along till I see you again. Thanks for joining me. All right, welcome to the bonus part of our podcast episode, and this is called Color Words. Actually, I used to have a podcast called Color Words. You could probably find it still. But I'm going to do the same kind of thing, but I'm just going to tag it along at the back end of my All the Hats We Wear podcast. So here are some color words that I've collected over the last couple months. Strange rumblings. Concocted a smear campaign. Blew a hole in. Underscored just how. Companies' losses are very material. We may lose $1 billion over 3 years. No shortage of. Immobilized by anxiety. Languished. Ungainly contraption of metal pipes and gauges. Flashed a satisfied smile. Saw nothing of her misdeeds. Struck a compliant tone. Saw nothing that gave her pause. The only note of pique in her comments related to how she was treated. Pique is Pique. Something to crow about. Years-long relationship with. She demurred when asked if. Usually brutal winter in Russia. Spent 4 million rubles on, that's the Russian currency. Spooked people into submission. Lives in exile in Germany. Livid with the police. That's a hard sell. Had harsh words for. Steamrolled local culture. Paradox of. Precarious. Plastered all over. Misplaced dirty joke. It crystallized something I sensed all along. Spoke volumes about. Made a throwaway comment. Mortified. Bewildered. Wore stacked bracelets from Cartier and Tiffany. Casual chic. That's CHIC. Shabby. Mistaken for a plea for help. Complicit. Skyrocketing profits. Craved an oasis. Round the clock care. That's hyphens between round the clock. Glimmers of. Tearful testimonial. Buggered off to Canada rather than face the music at home. Was in flux. Mavericks of music. Homoerotic. God-awful. Barrage. Usual shortcomings. Feminist poet who dazzled and upended. suddenly bolted to Miami. In the final act of her kaleidoscopic life, she called out sexist tropes. Spacious loft in Chelsea. Brash, crazy beautiful, unabashed enthusiasm for, resuscitated her career, decamped to California, game changer, cut her teeth on the outskirts of, visceral in-person antidote to, tacky. If I had any inkling, I would have turned him in myself. It was big and rousing, boring and absurd. Her ratings tanked. Bubbling in the background. The speech's subtext was about how narcissism leavened by good-heartedness. A smidge too high. Fiercely competitive. Fickle customers. Swanky Manhattan restaurant. Larger than life blank. Larger than life has hyphens in it. Helped launch the infrastructure that underpins the behemoth network of rattled investors, tight-knit cluster of scattered factions. Seismic shift looms an existential question, pre-show jitters, dangers of groupthink. New report posited a future in which withered, antipathy, tight-laced culture of the 50s, tireless advocate, chided by, unflattering depictions of, disavowed, more edifying than others, erudite and rigorous, led him to a heartening and hard-won conclusion. Transcendent triumvirate. Her aw shucks awkwardness. Untold stories lie waiting to be excavated. No frills Jim in London. Faced an icy reception. Armada of U.S. warships. Secret web of companies is helping her cloak her spending. Savvy strategies. Gnarly. Felt the irresistible tingle of a new attraction. Vacuous and overhyped. Hot-button issues. Doesn't waste words. Hodgepodge of meaty paragraph. Sowing chaos around the globe. Innermost thoughts. A model succinctness. Too discordant to be fully absorbed. A lackey. A sea change. Led to an inescapable conclusion. Poised to assume a leadership position. Colossal empire. Delectable host. Boutique hotel. Significant arsenal. Espoused. FBI SWAT team ferried her to Windsor Castle for dinner. Security team fanned out at a fundraiser. Global cabal of elites. New evidence has her crowing that she was right. Legitimized the vein of paranoid thinking. Comma, trumpeted one Facebook user. Many of the assertions made were QAnon movement emerged from the dark corners of the internet. So try using those color words and phrases in your journaling. Take care.